Is it? Thank you. Hello. Yeah.
I've done this all the time and I've lost my notes and things. Where are you here?
Yeah, this is a preview here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So it is, I mean, the treatment, actually the most important thing is the insulin. If you can get the insulin right, that's it. And then you need a bit of proteins to support. And
You get the insulin right because you need the insulin to get the glucose into your cells.
yes,
Is that right?
yes.
Do you know, I bet you nobody in this room really knows that.
Really?
I bet you almost no one knows that. Do you want to take a, shall I ask? Who knows the vital thing that insulin does? I'm betting you that only about one person knows. Because I didn't know until he told me. What's the vital thing that insulin is absolutely vital for? No, it's much more fundamental than that. Yeah, you need insulin gets glucose into your cells so they can burn it. Without insulin, it can't get in. Did you? Oh. Well, no, it's not for that. I thought it was just for controlling stuff. So without insulin getting yourself no energy at all.
Wonderful. I don't know, there are some stragglers. I'm sure they will come up. But let's start tonight's session. Welcome. I see all of you have got one of these. Look, it's not meant to read and study the whole thing. It's just that there are things that you might need to refer to, and then you can find them in here. So it's a good study tool. We want to give you as much knowledge as you can. And the wonderful thing about functional medicine is that it's progressing all the time, and you know there are more people doing more studies and that. So, you know, we just keep finding great articles that people write and studies that people do, and YouTube videos that I found a great one on sugar, and I circulated it yesterday, where someone in LA actually studied the effects of cocaine on the brain and the effects of sugar on the brain. They're exactly the same. Yeah. So, you know, the addiction is like, so, you know, it's so important that we just keep giving you information, and then, you know, with that information you apply it. Because when I started working with Dr. Sharif, he did about 15% of it, because I could go to him, and the rest of the stuff I had to find for myself. You know, he just points me in the direction, tells me it's there. So this is really to help you, and it's always good to have it around, and you know, when you want to look up something, it should be in there. If it isn't, you can Google it. So I'm very excited about this second group, because we're taking you to the next level, and I believe that you will be people that are equipped to help others, and that's what we're looking for. So thank you all, and without further ado, Dr. Sharif.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Pastor Chris, and thank you very much, everybody, for taking the time and effort to come tonight. And I hope we are going to present something or discuss something is going to be useful to you in your journey to health and well-being. What I'm trying to do tonight is to look at the solution, because if you remember, the first talk in this series was about what was the problem, and we have gone through the fact that the problem is that we are now taking the wrong food, the processed food, the high sugar, and the fast food, which has damaged the, if you can use this word, damaged the metabolic machine, and caused high insulin. And insulin is not a good thing, because insulin is the fat storage hormone. When it goes up, then everything goes into the storage. And when it is at a reasonable level, then you get sugar, as Richard mentioned earlier, into the cells, and that will give you health and will give you vitality and energy. So what we are going to discuss today is something which I'm going to discuss for the first time, something called the body weight set point. And I think this is going to be a very interesting concept, in the way that if somebody can keep their body weight set point at its really good level. I mean, the best level is the level at the age of 18, 20, when the body is functioning at probably a factory setting standard. So we will get into this point, but I think we will dedicate the most of the talk around food. Just we want to know a little bit, not too much, a little bit more around food. What is important about carbohydrates, for example? What's important about fat and proteins? The very important thing, as I said, to make sure that, the insulin stays at lower level, and if we can learn something about the portions and the day and week plans. When we are talking about the nature always promote balance. If you're talking about the kingdom. We have got the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. They are working in very, very good partnership. For example, we take the oxygen and we produce carbon dioxide. This is picked up by the plants, and they produce oxygen out of that. So at the end of the day, the net level, or the net level of oxygen and carbon dioxide would be at the same level, because it is made and consumed immediately. At the individual level, if you take, say for example, more water, then the kidneys will work very fast to take the excess out. And this is to keep the level of water and salt in the body at a certain level. So this is called the homeostasis. Yeah. So the body has to stay in a certain level. So when we start talking about energy, then we find the energy coming inside the body. When you take energy, the energy coming into the body has to be converted. The energy, which is food, coming into the body has to be converted into a physical energy to help you do things. There is always balance between the energy coming in and the energy going out. And this is what keeps the body set point at a certain level. And this happens because when the energy comes in, it is, I'm talking about the nature. The nature always gives you things. Well, even I think we need to talk about it in a better way. God, this is coming from God. This is the God-given, really. And it is coming in the right dose and the right formula. And it has to give you the better results on the other side. So what will happen, as I said, the body set point at the age of 20, probably this is the right age, because when we go away from this age, you see, then people start building up weight, and their body set points will go up. The body set points actually is very, very important, and all the time, you see, I ask my patients when they come, what is your weight when you were 20? And then they will laugh and say, oh, yes, I used to be 60-something, 62 or 63, and now you are 98. So I think there is a big deviation from your set points. But I have noticed lately, when I ask the younger generations about your weight at the age of 18 or 20, then they will say, oh, it was a lot higher. And this reflects, actually, we have got a higher rate of childhood obesity. So I think they start really very high, and then when they are a little bit more aware about things, then they start to say, oh, yes, this is too high. Let me just bring it down a little bit. So I think it's a good tool, actually, thinking about it. So if you'd like to think about the body weight set point, I think it is like a sink. If you think about like a sink with water at a certain level, and let us just assume if we are going to put more water into this sink at the same rate as the drain is taking the water away from the sink, then I think the level is going to stay at the same level, isn't it? But if we are going to put more water than what is going to go down the drain, then the water level is going to go up. And I think this is a way to think about the body set point. Because what happens, we are taking that amount of food. In the past, that amount of food will provide the body with a certain amount of energy. Now, when we go to the Western diet, the processed diet, the same amount, the same volume of food will provide too much energy. And that as if you are putting more water into the sink than what the sink is draining. So the set points is going to go up. And the weight is going to go up. Because you see the set points actually is adjusted in a way that you see it should not really go up or down by more than 4 pounds. So I think the energy-dense food is the reason behind the highest set points, and it is the actual reason behind the obesity and associated disease. And if we are going to talk about how can we bring the set points down, these are the things which we can do in our food. And this is what we did last time. We were concentrating more on non-starchy vegetables, and actually preferably if we are able to take something like 10 or more than 10 servings per day. We need also high quality proteins and high quality fat. You see? But everything else, and these are the other items of food, I don't think they're going to help us. Because you see, if you would like to correct things, it is different from what you can do while you are maintaining. You are just maintaining. I think that if you like to correct and to bring yourself down to the set points, your body weight set points, and to bring your weight and your measurements and your level of energy and everything down to where it should be, then I think you have to do a process. You have to go through this process. You have to increase these ones, and I think when you take as many portions of the non-starchy vegetables, this is going to correct any condition, any disease. Any disease actually is going to reverse with this. And I have seen it, and I see it every single day, you see, in my patients. Just give them this formula and let them go and do it for 4 weeks to 6 weeks. They definitely come back with more energy, with their weight, with their mind, sharpness of the mind, with their flexibility of the body, and with their fitness, level of fitness, and everything will improve just for this simple formula. And it is also helpful, actually. This formula is also helpful because when you go back to the natural food or the real food, it has got a high level of water and high level of fiber and high proteins and high nutrients. And this actually, because of the water and this thing, actually this one stretches the digestive system and ensure satiety. So you are not really wanting to eat more of it. While the other food, the modern food, which is dry and energy dense, actually cause the system to shrink and is wanting more of the same stuff. So it affects the hormone level as well, because as we have seen last time, the insulin, if you take something with low glycemic index, you see your insulin will stay down. But if you take a high glycemic index, then the insulin has to shoot up, and then following that, you have to have a crash. And then up and down, and every time you see your cravings will continue all the day long, and you're eating too much. So this type of food will ensure that, you see, this is not going to happen. And that has been confirmed in the studies, in research. When you take proteins is really a very good thing to take on every meal. You see, every meal has to have a good amount of proteins on it. And this is why, because proteins suppress the appetite. Actually, it's not suppress appetite. Actually, it's stop you, overeating. This is a real life story. In 1990, and I think at that time, USA put some sanction on Cuba. And this has stopped the imports of food from outside. And most of the food that comes from outside, it is highly processed food. And so they have to depend on their local food, which was the real food. What has happened, you see, the average person lost about 5.5 kilograms in weight, and the rate of disease has come down quite significantly. This has just happened like that, you see. And I don't think we need any sanction like this. But what we need is to move away from this pyramid. This is the US food pyramid that has been invented in 1980 and has caused all the problem. And as you can see, at the bottom of the pyramid, there is a lot of what do you call it, high processed carbohydrates and sugar. Bread, cereal, rice, pasta, and 6 to 11 servings of this one. So that was the main thing, and that is the fattening thing, and that is the health damaging thing. As you can see, there is a bit of vegetables and fruits, but there's a bit of proteins, but the fat component was too low. And I think we need to replace this pyramid with this one. Doesn't really look nice, actually, with this one. And this one, as you can see at the base, a lot of non-starchy vegetables, and then we have got fat and proteins, and then comes fruits at a lower portions, and starchy vegetables. And the other things which are not really very much wanted at the top. So it is mainly vegetables, non-starchy vegetables, and fat and proteins. So I think this is the better pyramid, and with a lot of fat as well.
So what are the ones above there? I can't read them.
Which one?
In the top three, the ones to be
Spices, huh?
The one below that?
This is the beans. Beans, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, beans, yeah. But I think this is the most important part here. The proteins, fats, because you see, you can see in the old ones, the old pyramids, actually the fats, because you see this is low fat food, low fat pyramid, low fat diet. You see, and high carb. Because you see, when we took the carb out, when we put the carb out, then we are able to put some fat. So the carb was replaced by carb. The protein is probably exactly the same in both pyramids. So let us just, go through the food. The food is divided into macro and micro nutrients. As we know, macronutrients, carbohydrates, protein, and fat, and the micro is vitamins and minerals. It is very interesting, actually. We can see it is very, very clear division. But it's very interesting and to see that. But sometimes it is difficult. Sorry. Sometimes it is difficult to decide what sort of food I'm taking. So, if I ask you, let us just go for a little quiz. If I ask you, where are you going to put the, milk, for example? Milk, is it protein, carb, or fat?
Protein.
Huh? Protein?
Fat and protein.
No, but you have to choose one. Fat? Everybody? Everybody agree on that? Is okay, let us see. Yes, it is fat. Because it is 94% fat. But 49% fat, yeah. So it is fat. Yeah. What about skimmed milk? Protein? Protein? Fat. Fat is still fat, isn't it? Yeah. No, it is carbohydrates. So it is 53% carb, and fat is only 5%. So it is carbohydrate. If you want to plan, if you want to plan your meal, this should be considered as carbohydrates. Yeah. Yeah, they are taking some skim milk, it's carbohydrates. What about beans? Protein? 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 Let us see. It is carbohydrates. Most of them. Huh? No, I don't think that. I think most of the green ones are carb as well. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I used to eat a lot of fava beans. The fava beans. They call it fava beans. Broad beans. They call it broad beans as well. Yes. Yeah. And this is really a very high carb. It has got a very, very high glycemic index. Very high glycemic index, you see. When you had a good meal of it, you see, you feel that your blood sugar has just shown up at the top, you see, and then you had a crash immediately. Very high, yeah. Okay, so what happens when we digest food? So the first thing to happen is you have to digest food, and then you absorb your food. And the digestion, the food is going to be broken down into small elements. These are the elements which are going to be absorbed. Or carbohydrates is broken down into sugar. Every carbohydrate, whether it is bread or pasta or rice or anything, eventually is going to go like sugar. Every protein is going to break down to amino acids. Fat is going to break down into glycerol and fatty acid. Glycerol is carb. Glycerol is carbohydrates. So fat is broken down into sugar and fat. You see?
It's hard to get away from carbohydrates.
Yes, yeah. And then we have got, when we break down food, then the food will release its mineral and vitamins content as well. So it's very important here. Protein and fat has got an essential components. Essential food, what do we mean by essential food? Essential food which the body cannot really make. So you have to take the essential food from outside. So if you're not taking essential food, then you'll be deficient of it. That is the essential food. So minerals and vitamins, most of the vitamins and minerals is essential because the body cannot make any minerals. But the body can make some of the vitamins. I mean, the bacteria in the colon, in the body, in the bowel, can make some of the vitamins. You have got essential amino acids. This has to be taken from outside. The body cannot really make them at all. And essential fatty acids, we are going to go through that. But there is no essential sugar. There is no essential carb. So this is another reason why carb is not very important. It's not very important. I mean, you are going to take some of them, you see, in any diet or any meal. But they are not very essential because amino acids can break down into sugar. A process called gluconeogenesis. Glucose. Neogenesis means new production of new make of glucose. So this is a process of gluconeogenesis. And as we have seen, fat has got the glycerol component, which will give sugar as well.
Then you can say, you're talking about natural operations, that the pancreas is able to take a certain percentage of sugar and work with it. So a certain percentage will be too high and it will damage the pancreas. So if in other words I'm saying it could work with about 10 or let me say 15 or whatever percentage.
Yeah.
So it's a natural thing to have too much sugar, because if everything has carbohydrates and sugar, then it's natural that the pancreas
Overwork.
will be overworked all the time anyway.
Yes, yeah. No, I think taking too much carbohydrates will make the pancreas, you see, working over time. And the bad thing about the pancreas working over time to produce insulin is that it's going to put your insulin level high. And when the insulin level, then you get the insulin, which is known as the fat storage hormone. And we don't want this fat storage hormone to be high, because when it is high, as I have given previously the analogy, you can have energy or calories or food stored into your kitchen fridge. And these are sugar stored as glycogen in the liver and muscles. These are available for you. You can take them, you can use them anytime. So this is available. But the fat is just like energy stored in the basement freezer. So it's not available for you. So you have to work really very hard to get this energy out of the basement freezer and to use it. Just like, say, for example, money. Cash, like the sugar is stored in the muscle, in the liver and glycogen, just like cash. The other one is like bonds. The basement freezer is just like bonds. So they are not available for you immediately. They are there, but they are not available for you to use them immediately. This is a difficulty. So when you are able, using food and whatever, you are able to bring down your insulin, then the basement freezer, the energy stored in the basement freezer, which in form of fat, will be available for you. That's the only time. And this is what happens. You see people, they are doing exercise, they are doing dieting, they are doing whatever, and still they're not losing weight. And this is because their insulin level is high. So they have to bring it down before they start losing any weight. Thank you for, that's a very nice, very good, interesting question. And these are the essential amino acids. And these are the essential fatty acids, omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9. Omega-9 is olive oil, oleic acid. And omega-3 is the fish oil. So these are the essential ones. Okay, I don't really want to talk too much about carbohydrates because we know too much about it. But the very important thing, carbohydrates is not always limited to, because people, when you talk about carbohydrates, they think it is only talking about biscuits or about sweets or about pasta or something like that. Even green, leafy green vegetables or any form of non-starchy vegetables has got a lot of carbohydrates on them. But it is a good carbohydrates, it's a good sugar, you see, stored with good amount of fiber and good amount of nutrients on it. And normally, we need about 75 to 125 grams of carb per day. That's our daily requirement. But the average Western diet provides almost 3 times, 3 times this amount, because the Western diet, you see, it's energy-dense food, energy-dense food. I think the bar of chocolate is about 300 calories or something like that. If you talk about something like the same weight, a banana or, sorry, an apple, for example, it's about 25 grams. 25 calories. So it is really energy dense. And if you go to the grocery, most of it is carbohydrate. Most of it is carb, actually. And most of it is really very unhealthy carb. The non-starchy vegetables, the best examples are the dark green, the dark leafy greens. And the more darker the color, they are more healthy. They're more healthy. And then you have to go also for the different other colors, because every color has got a different meaning. So you have to go every day, say, for 1 or 2 colors, for example, white or blue, blueberries and these things, or say orange. These are full of vitamin A, and or you go for the orange, you see. So every time you have to go to a different color. So covering most of the colors you see every week is going to be very helpful, because you are providing the body with different stuff which is going to help. Yeah. And I think probably later on we might talk about the serving size, because the serving size is the amount which you can just put in and say. I think if you want to be a little bit more accurate, if you can fit in an 8-ounce cup. This is the cup. Actually, this is the cup. And when it is cooked, then possibly the size will come down to half the size of the fresh. And you know the importance of the fiber. The fiber is very, very important. It helps people become regular, and this is because of the transit time. The transit time is the time when you take the food until it comes out from the other end. So when you take fibers, this will reduce the transit time, increase the bulk of the produce, actually, of the food in the bowl, and that is also beneficial. It's quite beneficial. I think sometime later we'll talk about the different types of poo. And I think this is very, very important because people are not really aware about that, you see. Actually, the best one, the best poo, we call it a coiled snake. The coiled snake is the best poo. And the worst poo is the pellets, just like these are the worst. And yes. And these are classified. There is a classification really list. I'll bring this list with me sometime later. But it's very, very important. You see, the fiber improve the quality of the poo, and it reduces the or slow down the absorption of sugar. And that is, as you said, Brian, it slows down the sugar getting into the system, and it slows down the reaction of the pancreas. The pancreas is not going to produce too much insulin. Also, it's good for toxins. It's good for toxins. When you have too much fiber, it will stop the toxin circulating. If you take, for example, flaxseed, you see, this is going to make the bowel regular, very good for stool, and it picks up these toxins and it never let them go, because you see most of these toxins will recirculate, something we call it intrahepatic circulation. So it will go from the liver. The toxins are made in the liver. The liver will detoxify. This is a big detoxification organ of the body. It takes toxins, put them into bile, and eject them into the bowel, And when it goes down, you see, if there is no fiber to take them down out of the body, then they come back again. They reabsorb again, and they come back again to the liver, and then into the gallbladder. And they call it this circulation, they call it intrahepatic circulation. And when you have got enough fiber, then they will stop this circulation happening at all. Sorry. And then the very important thing about fiber, it feeds the friendly bacteria. Actually, the friendly bacteria take the fibers and they make the best food out of them. And this food is known as short-chain fatty acids. The best example is something called butyrate. And butyrate is one of the best thing, a best gift or presents you can give to your body, because it inhibits inflammation of the bowel. Actually, I prescribe this as supplements to my patients with inflammation in the bowel, inflammatory bowel disease like Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. I do prescribe butyrates for them. It is anti-tumor effect. You see, if you are taking too much enough fiber, then you are very unlikely to have tumors, cancer in the gut. And also, the studies also showed that it has got some beneficial effect on the brain as well. Beneficial effect on the brain. You see, and this is taken by the fiber goes down to the colon untouched. You see, the digestion does not really touch the fibers. The fibers will be completely intact, untouched completely, until they come into the large bowel where the bacteria are there. And then the bacteria ferment them and make the good stuff out of them in the colon. And they are beneficial to the colon cells because they are the best food for the colonocytes. Colonocytes is the colon cells, you see, and for the bacteria themselves, and beneficial for the rest of the body as well. I think we have spoken about this, the glycemic index and the glycemic load. The very important thing, you would like to avoid anything with high glycemic index. And the glycemic index, actually, if you would like to read about that, you see anything with a glycemic index under 20 and under 50 is a good one. 50 to 75 is moderate. Anything above 75 is bad. But the glycemic load is another expression of the same thing. The glycemic load is the, actually you can calculate the glycemic load. You get the amount of the glycemic index by the how much the food contains in terms of how much carbohydrates the food contain, and you divide that by 100. And this will give you the glycemic load. And the glycemic load, low at less than 10, 11 to 19 medium, more than 20 is high glycemic load. The very interesting thing about this, the glycemic load, is this one. Watermelon, for example, has got a very high glycemic index, 70-something, but a low glycemic load. So I think if you are desperate for something to test, that's the one thing which you could go for. It's a low glycemic. We say that the portion has got a very low amount of sugar, despite the fact that it has got a high glycemic index. This is the same thing. We are also, and actually this is a different type of food, and how much the glycemic index and the glycemic load. Okay. I think that's a very interesting study. How would you reduce the insulin, increase the insulin sensitivity, or reduce the insulin resistance? This is a study done by Professor Roy Taylor at University of Newcastle. And he gave his patients, actually these are diabetic patients, type 2 diabetes, have been diabetic for some time. He gave them a meal of 200 calories 3 times daily. That is medical food. And then he gave it to them actually 3 times daily. I think it's a total of 600 to 800 calories per day. And for 6 weeks. What has happened in the first week, all of the patient blood sugar has improved, and they have to go off their diabetic medications. That's very interesting. Just 1 week of low calories has taken diabetes down on its knees completely, and patients has to go off their medication. That's very interesting. And then in 1 year time, 11 out of 13 stayed with normal blood sugar on no medication. That's also interesting. I mean, this has been cured completely. For 1 year, you see they are doing fine. And while he was doing that, he checked their fat content of the viscera by using an MRI scan. And he found that they have lost a lot of fat in their liver and in their pancreas. And that's very important because the liver is the bigger player. The liver, actually, when you get sugar coming into the body, the liver will, it comes through the portal vein. From the intestine, it goes into a big vein called the portal vein, straight into the liver. So it hits the liver the first time, the very thing, you see? And then the liver takes about 60 or 50 or 60% of this sugar load out of the blood and store it as glycogen. And then the rest will go to the body. So the liver is a big player. So if you are able to remove fat from the liver, then you are bringing a big player like David Beckham, bring David Beckham into the English team, you see? So it's a very, very important thing to do that. Again, taking fat out of the pancreas is another important step because this is where the insulin is made, and you get a very good quality of insulin coming out, and that is going to help the system. That's one thing. The other thing, as we spoke about that several times, always go for low glycemic index to keep the insulin level low. Don't do the other ones. And another thing which is going to be very important, and it has been proven important, and so many people has reported on feeling a lot better on it, is try to keep your insulin down for long. And this is why we have invented a prolonged daily fast. A prolonged daily fast. You see, you finish your last meal, say, for example, at 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, and then you're not taking anything until tomorrow, midday. So you're doing something like 16 hours of daily fast. And this will bring insulin down. That will bring insulin down. And if you are able to do something like days fasting, that is going to bring insulin down completely. So you're going to cure any condition. I mean, I have heard, many people, you see, they put testimonial on this sort of treatment, and doing many days of intermittent fasting, water fast, you see. These people have really come down to feeling the feeling that they have had many years back. I mean, I remember I have spoken to one of my patients. I mean, she said she is as if she is as if she is 10 years younger. Everything that she was able to do 10 years ago, she was able to do after she did some intermittent fasting for a few days. Yeah. So I think this is the three ways, things that we could do. One thing is to remove fat from the viscera. The second thing is to bring the insulin level down. And the third thing is to bring the insulin down for long hours every day. So have you got time for? Okay. Okay, so if it's, I think the other thing which I would like to talk about is protein. The very important thing about protein is good for the satiety, and it provides essential amino acids required for essential function in the body. Just like, say, methionine and tyrosine, these are for the brain chemistry. Tryptophan, this is the happiness hormone, which is also converted into melatonin, which is the sleep hormone. And glutathione, this is the master antioxidant. It's made up of amino acids, of protein. So I think you need proteins. Nobody would probably argue about that. Proteins are very, very important. And if you take adequate amount of protein, then you prevent any muscle loss. Because people lose about 5% of their muscles every decade. But if you are able to take adequate amount of proteins, that is going to keep the level of leucine. Leucine is one of the amino acids up, and this prevent, combined with exercise, prevent muscle loss. And this is what you need: 30 to 55 grams with each meal. Each meal, 30 to 55 grams of proteins, 100 to 200 grams per day. People actually, they mix grams with the weight of food. 200 grams of salmon, 40 grams of proteins, equal to 40 grams of proteins. So you need to, 40 grams of proteins is about just like, say, 1 meal portion. So it's not really enough for the day. And the protein, the very important thing about protein is the biological value. The biological value is very important. And as I can see here, this is the biological value of different types of protein. So eggs, they are a very, very good type of protein. Whey, it's actually another type of good proteins, but it is from dairy. Soy is a good one, but it is but most of it is GMO. Hemp is good, but it's a little bit lower quality of proteins. And the animal source is more superior than the plant source. And this is why I always used to really advise vegan and vegetarian to take something called branch chain amino acids to supplement their protein, their suboptimal profile of plant proteins. You see, and vegan also need the B12. So these are the studies which is showing that proteins protect against disease. I think I probably tell you about the story of Atkins. Atkins, you know, Atkins he's a cardiologist. He was a cardiologist at New York, and he is the one who invented the Atkins diet. He did very well. Actually, he was 100 kilo. His weight was 100 kilo, and then he came down to a reasonable weight, and he was able to see his patients because before doing that, he was a little bit hesitant. In case, I mean, patients might criticize his weight. He did very well indeed, but unfortunately, the Atkins diet is high proteins, high fat. So actually, it is proteins plus salad or something like that, and that was the problem with it. There is no storage system for proteins. So if you are taking too much proteins, it has to be converted into sugar by some way. And that, because of the high protein, is not going to show up very clearly on the system. The other bad thing about high proteins, it is going to lift up the insulin growth factor 1 level. And insulin growth factor 1 level is a good stuff. It's a very good stuff. It helps, it benefits the muscles and brain and gut. But if it goes too high, then it causes a lot of inflammation and autoimmunity. You see? And this was the problem here. That what caused Atkins to die with heart attack. I think very high inflammation due to IGF-1 level. I don't think we have got time to talk about this one, but the very important thing about fat is omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. This ratio in the hunter-gatherer ancestor used to be 1 to 1. So they are taking equal amount of omega-3 and omega-6. Now, the vegan actually have got 15 to 1. The vegetarian, 10 to 1. And the meat eater, 7 to 1. Mediterranean diet is the best one, 4 to 1. And if you can see, this is all cause mortality in UK. And if you can see the vegan, they are the highest mortality. The highest mortality. Regular eaters are a little bit better and reduce better. Fish, probably the same level. So, so the vegans, definitely there is some problem there. And the problem is because of omega-3, omega-6 ratio. That's one issue. And the other issue is vitamin B12, because they don't have vitamin B12. So I think the vegan and the vegetarian are going to benefit from flaxseed, vitamin B12, and folate to lower their homocysteine. And homocysteine is a vascular and neurotoxins. Okay, I think I will give you this interesting case. This is a lady whom I have seen recently in clinic. She is a very intelligent 46-year-old lady. she's a professional working in London. So she presented with lethargy, feeling tired, exhausted most of the time. She became forgetful and depressed. And she has got symptoms of IBS, long-term IBS symptoms, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And she, because of her job, actually, she was at a very high level of stress. She mentioned that, she admitted saying that, she was a fast eater. And she has got a lot of anxiety. When I examined her, it's very interesting. She has got her leg and arm muscles a little bit rigid. Because you see, you check the tone should be really floppy, not rigid. But she's a little bit more rigid. Checked her reflexes, very brisk reflexes. When I hit with the hammer, you see, very, very, very brisk reflex. And she has got some sensory loss on her legs and on her feet. So the clues about her problems comes from the fact that she's fast eater and she's anxious. Fast eating does not really chew the food enough to break it down into small pieces. And because of her anxiety, she is on what is known as sympathetic tone. Because, the sympathetic tone, or somebody who is stressed all the time, what will happen, most of the blood will go into the brain and the muscle, because you will be in the fight, flight state, you see? So the gut and the digestion is not a priority. So most of the time, she is not making adequate amount of digestive juice in her system, in her gut. And because the very important thing for the digestion of proteins and for vitamin B12 specifically is the breakdown of proteins in the stomach. That is going to require hydrochloric acid as a very important point, and then the enzyme called pepsin. So with her stress, she is not producing adequate amount of hydrochloric acid, and she's not producing adequate amount of digestive enzyme. Again, the pancreas also will be touched by the stress, because the stress will come through the same nerve called the vagus nerve, which comes to the stomach, and it comes to the pancreas, and because of the high level of tone on this vagus nerve, and because of the high level of stress, you see, so she's not making adequate amount of pancreatic enzyme. So, and this is why she's not able to absorb vitamin B12. And the treatment was giving her B12 and relaxation techniques, and that has sorted out her problem. So this is a problem. It's not a problem. It's not a disease yet. So you cannot call it a disease yet. It is a dysfunction, at the level of a dysfunction, you see? And we are able to pick up this dysfunction just from the history of simple things. She's doing things a little bit in an awkward way, which is not allowing her body system to function as it should do. These are things which signs which I see quite often in clinic as well, people coming with brittle nail. And these are the things which are always deficient in these people. Iron, calcium, magnesium, copper, and zinc. And when you replace these things, and always you find some reason why they are deficient in this thing, that is always going to help them. So I think we probably stop at this stage. The very important thing, as we have seen here, the damage caused by taking the wrong food to the metabolic machine is reversible And we need to take real food instead of processed food to get back our weight set points down to early adult life. And we need to aim for lowering our viscera fat and reduce our insulin level. And this should bring back our insulin sensitivity. And I think this is the most crucial part of the recovery process, of the healing process. Bringing down your insulin to a reasonable level. Then the body will start healing properly. Thank you very much indeed for your time. And I hope this is...
Thank you, Dr. Sharif. There was a lot of information in that tonight. We can watch this again. A lot of that is covered, yes, but this, we've got a lot more focus on certain things here. So it's better to go onto YouTube, watch it again, and make notes. We are learning, and we're learning and getting a lot of information. And I mean, I just keep saying, a lot of things are quite obvious, but someone has to point them out to you. And then you go, oh, well, I didn't see that before, but it is there. And I really suggest that you go through, watch this video on the YouTube channel, make notes, read the tutorial. The tutorial's there for you to just, when you're inquisitive about something, just read up about it. When you're trying to find out what foods are good for you, it's all in there. But this is more detail, and this is why we have Dr. Sharif with us, who gives us insight into how to be, healthy and keep our vitality and strength. I mean, this insulin thing is just so critical, and you've got to hear it over and over and over again to really understand it, because if we get that wrong, everything else is wrong. So thank you so much, Dr. Sharif, for all the input that you've given us. And we're going to get our metabolic machines back to factory settings. And I mean, we can all do it. Thank you and good night. Amen.